Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Game Changer. I'm your host Maryam Zia. When we talk about Chinese investment in foreign economies, Belt and Road Initiative is significant. BRI was aimed to encourage interconnectivity and cooperation across Europe, Asia and Africa by multilateral and bilateral cooperation and mechanisms amongst different countries of the region. In today's show, we will be discussing about the potential of BRI. BRI has so far 140 countries and 6 development sectors and 6 development corridors are included in the project so far. What is the prospects of this BRI? And we will be also discussing about Turkey in today's show. Turkey joined BRI in 2015 and the strategic location of Turkey at the intersection of Asia and Europe makes it invaluable for BRI. What is the potential of this strategic cooperation between Pakistan, China and Turkey? We will be looking at in today's program. What would be the consequences of BRI project for the region and the potential threats? We would be focusing on those as well, and how this BRI and the cooperation between these 3 countries would be invaluable for the prosperity of region. To discuss this and more, I have been joined on Skype by Dr. Fazal Rahman, IR expert. Thank you very much, sir. Welcome to the program. And in the studios, I have been joined by Mr. Hannan Hussain, who is an international affairs expert. And with him, I have been joined by Mr. Hamayoun Khan, who is an expert on international affairs. Welcome to the program. Let me start with Dr. Fazal Rahman. Dr. Fazal Rahman, when we talk about BRI, the middle corridor is very important in this regard. What is the progress on the project so far?
Well, actually, all the corridors are very important, and the middle corridor is certainly very important because it is passing through West Asia and connecting Europe. So far, there are different levels of progress on BRI's middle route, and it depends on the nature of infrastructure projects which are under construction in different countries. So I think that overall, the satisfaction is this, that it's progressing well, and all the countries are very enthusiastic who are a member of BRI, and they are supporting this concept, and they are benefiting from this concept, and they look forward to have more and more benefits once these corridors are established, and their internal development also, because this corridor is not only a passage. This corridor has a comprehensive concept, and it is helping the developing world, developing countries especially, to undertake developmental projects, especially related to infrastructure. So I think that it varies from country to country, and its accumulated effect will come on the BRI.
Right. So let's talk about, Mr. Hannan, let's talk about the trajectory of this corridor. So let's talk about this middle corridor. What areas and what regions are going to be impacted by this? What areas are going to be covered? What sectors would be mostly impacted by this?
Thanks so much for having me. So I think if we start one by one, I think with the middle corridor, there's an understanding that in order for the Belt and Road to reach out through a Euro-Asia link, Turkey's integration would be important. And I think at the time, in 2015, when there was a lot of focus on integrating BRI's development strategy with that of Turkey, the middle corridor became then a focal point in that exercise. I think in terms of when you talk about how the Belt and Road in general has transpired over the past decade, kind of one estimate, if all Belt and Road projects, including those under the middle corridor, were to be implemented, the entire social gain value to the globe could be about 1.6 trillion by the end of this decade. So that tells you a lot
because
about...
Because it covers around 61% of the population of
the
region,
absolutely.
Of the world.
And I think on top of that, we've
huge.
also seen 5 more countries joining the Belt and Road in this entire exercise. And in terms of Turkey and China's engagement, look, there's a strategic angle to it. We saw a lot of talk about, more than a decade ago, about Central Asian countries partnering with Turkey, partnering with China to advance the Belt and Road through those corridors, including railroad networks. But I think in order for that to happen, a lot of focus has to be put on logistics. Right. Turkey is in need of an expansive transportation and rail network.
Right.
China has made initial gains. we expect more to be there in the future.
Right. So a lot of investments would be required when we talk about these connections that are to be built on this. So what is the progress so far in this middle corridor? Specifically, we talk about Turkey's initiative of looking towards Asia. What is the progress so far?
I think, thank you for having me on the show. There's a lot of progress since the initiation of these corridors, particularly when you're talking about the middle corridor. There are like two portions of this middle corridor. The first one is Baku, Tbilisi and Kars corridor. That's the first portion, and the second is from Georgia to Bulgaria. In 2017, they started this BTK. It's already under massive progress. Trains are moving there. In 2019, Turkey has opened its Marmaret Tunnel, which basically from there, from the Turkish side, goes under the Bosphorus Strait and goes to the Europe. So the idea is, as Hannan was saying and Dr. Fazal was saying, connecting China with Europe, and Turkey is at the crossroad of Europe and Asia as well. So it has a very, very significant place. There is a regular train going from Xi'an to Istanbul now. It has started in 2020-21. The freights are coming. So I guess the idea of connectivity is materializing. So in that sense, I guess it's very important development that this Belt and Road Initiative goes further. Almost 140 plus different countries have joined now.
Yes, and
50 different organizations have joined.
Yes.
International monetary institutions are part of it. Asian Infrastructure Bank is there. So in terms of finances, there's no dearth of money, which as you were asking, that how much finances are required.
But we need to talk about the feasibilities of these.
Absolutely.
We will be discussing in the program later. So Dr. Fazal Rahman, when we talk about Turkey, we know that Turkey has always looked towards West in its foreign policy. How do you see this shift of looking towards, specifically I want to discuss this Asia New initiative of Turkey and how this would be significant for connectivity of the region, for connecting Europe to Asia, if we talk about?
Well, actually, certainly Turkey has been serving as a bridge between Asia and Europe. But over the years, when Turkey wanted to get membership of European Union, so they have realized that, they are not really accepted as a full member. They are not accepted. They are part of NATO, but at the same time, they don't want to be.
Which is
they are not
very important.
So that has actually created a disgruntledness amongst the Turks, and they have started, tracing back their roots, which is, of course, Central Asia, and they have, substantive influence in Central Asia, and they have very good relations now with China. Before that, till 2000, they have had very little interaction with China. It started opening up towards China about 2 decades back.
Turkey in 2020 financial crisis, so that was also significant in connecting Turkey back to BRI.
That's of the recent origin. I'm talking about 2 decades back. There had been hardly any substantive interaction between the two because of some issues between China and Turkey, the Turk descendants in Xinjiang. So there were some political issues, but I think now those issues have been overcome by both the countries and they are progressing very well. Now, let me draw your attention towards this very interesting triangle that you are trying to draw, Pakistan, Turkey and China, because for Pakistan, I think it's a great advantage if you look at the nature of friendship that we have with Turkey and China. And I think there is a great potential in this triangular relationship if you are focusing on that.
Right. So let's talk about, Mr. Hamayoun, I want to talk about the railway track that you mentioned earlier. What sectors are going to be covered by that? Specifically, we talk about the energy sector that is a need of Pakistan at the moment.
I think, let me come back to what Dr. Fazal was saying. This is a very, very interesting troika
That we're talking about,
which involved not necessarily only the Belt and Road Initiative, but it encompasses geopolitics and geoeconomics of the region as well.
Yes.
Turkey being a very important Muslim country, which is again at the crossroad of Europe and Asia, and Pakistan and China has been all-weather strategic cooperative friends for a very long time.
And it has drawn a lot of concerns from the world. If we talk about India, if we talk about US, a lot of concerns about this troika.
Absolutely. Well, it's developing. Yeah, Dr. Fazal was mentioning that, because of the Turkey's accession towards the European side was not welcomed by the European side too much. So of late, under President Tayyip Rajab Erdogan, he has become a little more Asian, pan-Islamic, and then also moving towards China as well. Pakistan has been very instrumental in the past in terms of developing this relationship between China and Turkey as well, in terms of coordination. Now that both are part of Belt and Road Initiative, I guess there's a unanimity of view on most of the international issues which China, Pakistan and Turkey is facing. There's an issue of Afghanistan, there's an issue of defense cooperation between China and Pakistan, defense cooperation between China and Turkey. There's an economic integration between the Turkish companies coming to Pakistan. There is Pakistani defense relationship with Turkey. When we couldn't get spare parts of a lot of our military equipment, Turkey was always there to help us. So Turkey has also developed a very, very strong relationship, and historically we have always been a big fan of Turkey and the Islamic.
Yes. There is a soft power of Turkey in Pakistan as well.
Absolutely.
We'll be talking about that later in the program. But when we talk about BRI, there is still very little investment on part of China in Turkey's projects. What do you make of it?
I think I'd take that as an advantage, because certainly that creates space for China and Turkey to be further integrated into the broader BRI system. I think if you look at evidence from China's engagement with other partners with which it has had fraternal ties, you look back to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the 10-member bloc in Southeast Asia. How have they consolidated their partnership? There have been a lot of, track 2 and sorts of, I'd say, official engagement between ASEAN Plus, which allows China and ASEAN countries to come together and say, hey, we are looking for further consolidation between two countries under the BRI. I think there's a strong need, and I'd focus on Pakistan here as well, for Pakistan, Turkiye and China to come up with a trilateral strategic communication forum, which could lead to the Belt and Road partnerships to be fast-tracked. Because, it's important to bear in mind, we do have starting points for that. Chinese companies are importantly engaged with Turkey's energy, transportation and connectivity needs. There's just a need to scale it up. And I think China has been apt with doing that. And bringing Turkish investments on board with China to do that. I don't see any hurdles there. It's just that you need to have a solid platform that builds on current strengths and scales them up long term.
So when we talk about these kind of platforms that are required, what are the bottlenecks so far, Dr. Fazlur Rahman?
I think that basically we have to create endowments. We have to use each other's advantages. China has huge surplus of finances. Turkey has technological edge, certain kind of, especially in construction field, they have much more advanced technologies. So Pakistan can also provide, human resource, technical know-how and other things. So there has to be we have to create kind of an endowment which can be utilized for implementing projects in either Turkey or in Pakistan. With the participation of China, of course. So I think the bottlenecks are the political decision, the political stability, political decision, and we need a kind of a vision also in order to implement such kind of projects which will have far-reaching implications for the development of both Turkey and Pakistan. Turkey is also having some kind of financial problems, issues. Pakistan is also having these kind of problems. So we can perhaps pool our resources, we can devise a strategy, we can work together hand in hand, because Turkey is one of the most favored country in Pakistan, like China. And in Turkey also, there's a lot of respect that Pakistanis enjoy. So we have to cash in on these cultural aspects, on these traditional friendship context. We can really do a lot in the field of education, science and technology,
Right. A
like
lot can
Turkey
be
is
done in
moving in
different sectors. So, Mr.
knowledge-based
Hannan, when we
economy.
talk
Yeah.
about specifically about Pak-Turkey relations, we know that Pakistan and Turkey share brotherly relations, and when we talk about the military interaction and cooperation as well, we have a history. So, what are the areas and sectors in which Pakistan and Turkey can collaborate?
I think the relationship needs no introduction. If you talk about, for example, Pakistan and Turkey's defense cooperation,
Of course.
look at the naval aspects of it. Turkey has been responsible for manufacturing one of Pakistan's most pivotal, Navy ships as well, which are geared towards, preventive measures. We also see that there has been a lot of sale with regard to defense equipment. Pakistan also facilitating on its end, and also a lot of talk about, the fighter jets as well. So I think that in itself is only the surface of how much Turkey and Pakistan can collaborate, because these are important time-tested sectors. There's no room for experimentation there. There's a lot of, the industries are responsive to it, and I think that in itself is a good sign to kind of scale up the partnership. You look
So,
towards,
how to scale up the partnership?
So you could begin by expanding the amounts, the types and the kinds and the ranges of equipment that you're focused on. I mean, technological advancement in this space happens by the minute. Turkey is obviously on guard when it comes to NATO and its perceived counterterrorism threat. Pakistan itself also needs to have that deterrence when we see strategies such as India's inclusion within the Indo-Pacific threatening on the maritime front. So I think if you look at the external pressures, the external challenges, that in itself can become an incentive to advance that. Very shortly, I think on the trade and economic front, we've seen a lot of visits from the serving government in Pakistan to kind of court investor sentiment. That in itself, I think, can be done much better to the Belt and Road, because you do have international financial institutions on board which can tailor each and every project according to the needs of China and its partners. It's important to note that one of the successes behind China's BRI engagement has been its ability to tailor those to local expectations. And I think Turkey would welcome that. Pakistan, at a delicate economic point, would also welcome that.
Right. So when we talk about, Dr. Fazal Rahman, when we talk about China and Turkish relations, Turkey's geostrategic location is very significant. So how do you view the future of diplomatic relations between China and Turkey, as we were talking about earlier about the history that the both countries share?
I think they are on the upward trajectory and they are moving fast. If you look at the development in terms of their trade, I think it's increasing very rapidly, although it is greatly in favor of China. But at the same time, China is investing in the energy sector in Turkey and transportation communication section in Turkey. So there are certainly several ways of enhancing their collaboration. And I also would like to point out that, China has very deep interest in Central Asia, and Turkey has a cultural endowment in Central Asia. So in the larger context of ECO, which is Economic Cooperation Organization, in which Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and some Central Asians are the members, I think a larger context can also be given to this trilateral framework, and Pakistan and Turkey can take the lead in that. And certainly China is going to benefit from the kind of cooperative relationship that develops not only on bilateral basis, but in the larger framework of BRI and in the larger and in multilateral frameworks, because traditionally China has been dealing more comfortably with multilateral framework rather than dealing with individual countries. So I think that scope is there.
But we need some mechanisms in place for these kind of multilateral cooperation amongst these countries.
Certainly, there should be mechanisms, there should be platforms, and then there should be a sustainable effort. There has to be follow-up to all the decisions that are taken at such platforms.
So let's talk about these sustainable efforts and the Chinese investment in different projects of Turkey's industries and sectors. Specifically, if we talk about the energy sector, what would be the economic aspect of this?
I think that it is going to enhance Turkey's productivity. It is going to help Turkey to overcome its energy shortages. It will ease Turkey's access to international markets. And certainly, because China is going to invest, China is Chinese companies are going to benefit from these kind of ventures. And the most important, advantage would be that the countries are going to become more and more integrated in a system which is going to benefit not only the two countries but the other countries also, which are member and part of this overall structure. So I think that the advantages are numerous, and at the same time, this approach of China is more inclusive. It's not like based on certain kind of a old Cold War mentality. It's a
Right.
very modern approach in which
Yes.
they are coming up with the global sustainable security initiatives, global economic initiatives, which are meant for upgrading the development level of the
Yes, and
developing
it is
world.
tailored as per needs of the particular region.
Absolutely, because that is the core principle of China's, engagement with the rest of the world, that you should look at your own comfort zones. You should look at your local environment, local conditions, and you tailor your solutions according to that.
Right, we will be talking more about this, but we have to take a short break here. Take a break. Welcome back. We are talking about BRI and China's and Turkey's collaboration and cooperation in different sectors. But when we talk about China's vision of interconnectivity, because we know that the basic aim is that China wants to influence the economies of the underdeveloping countries through this BRI project. What about the vision behind connecting this, this from China to Europe? What regions would be impacting, and what would be the impact on economies of the countries?
So I think that's one of the many beauties of the BRI initiative. I think in terms of regions, we're looking at the entire connectivity between Asia, starting from China, all the way down to Europe. And within that, Turkey aspires to become a bridge as well through its middle corridor. And also China sees Turkey as a viable component as part of that exercise. We've seen past statements as well during official dialogues to suggest that. In terms of economies being impacted, look, I'd look at it from a sector point of view. So I think if China and Turkey are to build further on this trajectory, it'll be important to then prioritize one or two key sectors, strengthen them so much that it enables them to diversify into
And
other
what should be those two sectors?
So one, without doubt, would be strengthening Turkey's logistical and railroad structure. Already we've seen headway in December 2020 as it was inaugurated, and also Turkey's demonstrated need to strengthen that within the country. So I think that's where China has a history of upgrading the capacity building of many countries all around the world. You talked about lower to middle income countries. That's exactly the focus right there. And then again, I think energy is another one which is a high return sort of initiative where Pakistan and China have also made headway, and I think that is a natural room for countries to converge.
So let's talk about the impact of this railroad track from China to Europe on Pakistan's economy. How Pakistan would be impacted by this? What would be the ease of business for Pakistani business sector?
So an early estimation of the impact, we could look at it that way. One of the things is going to be Pakistan wants access to new markets into Europe. And I think at a time when much of the world is set to look at a global recession, I think a strong emphasis on infrastructure and connectivity would basically aid Pakistan's ambitions to enter those markets. And I think China's infrastructure routes are promising in that respect. So that market integration is one aspect. Secondly, I think it's also to tailor Pakistan's offerings with regard to investor sentiment. Now, what would those offerings be? I think this in itself would be determined by how other countries through that rail network would basically be passing along their goods and services. I think thirdly, I think China is not willing to, Dr. Fazal made Dr. Rahman made a very important point with regard to sustainability. Global Development Initiative, which China has tied to the Belt and Road as well, is backed by UN partnerships, is backed by ground level engagements from international institutions. Those institutions which cater to Turkey, those which cater to China. So I think this wider umbrella of the GDI with the Belt and Road, along with infrastructure, can make for a healthy composite, a combination that Pakistan is more forthcoming towards, and so is Turkey.
Right, we're talking about the role played by these organizations as well, but let's talk about the supply chain diversification, how this would be impacting the economies of Pakistan, China and Turkey.
Well, actually, as far as this supply and demand chains are concerned, I think this supply chain has been disrupted over the years of COVID, and there has been a lot of negative impact on global economic situation, and especially certain countries have suffered more. Pakistan, fortunately, has not suffered that much because our exports are very much limited in terms of its destination. So I think that once we are connected in a very strong, integrated manner, I think it will help improve the condition of not only the regional supply chain but global supply chain, and it is going to give certain kind of advantage to both the countries, I think, in the coming years if this kind of framework evolves and takes place and this kind of cooperation develops in the right direction.
Right, this kind of cooperation would be impacting the economies. Mr. Hannan, you were earlier saying about the BRI it's being viewed not as a grand strategy but as loose pockets, and it is tailored as per needs of the region. How significant is that if we look at in the perspective of the current situation, geopolitical and geoeconomic situation?
Yeah, so my initial point was that it remains a grand strategy, but one that can be localized in terms of benefits. So in terms of importance, I think each country has its own expectations on which segments and sectors it wants to prioritize. So there's no one-size-fits-all assumption within the Belt and Road. That's important because Turkiye, at a time of some understandable economic pressures, would want certain sectors to be prioritized, to be coming forward. Pakistan's expectations with the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor have been well received by China, but at the same time, China engaged with over 150 countries is localizing benefits to each and every country, and that's an enormous exercise in trying to maintain stability.
Let's talk specifically about these sectors.
Yeah.
Firstly, about the sectors that would be impacted in Turkey by this initiative, and then talk about the impact of these sectors on Pakistan as well, because we are talking about cooperation and connectivity, and as you earlier mentioned about a cooperation network for these three countries.
Yeah, so in terms of impact, I think a lot depends on which sectors the countries prioritize themselves. So as of now, when we look at Turkey, there's a lot of focus on infrastructure, specifically railroad. As I alluded to earlier, that in a way serves out to be quite an advantage for Pakistan, as it enables another route for Pakistan to connect its merchandise over to Europe in the long run. Secondly, if you look at transportation, that's that kind of a sector which has resonance both within Pakistan and with Turkey, and China's ability to offer competencies to countries all around the world suggests that China is able to bring those competing expectations together under the Belt and Road. How that happens, look, it's going to be a multi-year exercise. So when you invest in this particular initiative, infrastructure by design would lead to benefits in the longer run. So I think infrastructure, as well as catering to the transport angle of it, is going to be immediate. In terms of energy, look, the international market remains volatile. There's a lot of downward pressure.
Yes.
At the same time, I think building energy plants and also making sure that countries are able to better manage the energy constraints is going to be important.
What are the bottlenecks so far that are keeping this project at a slow track?
I think one of the bottlenecks has been the amount of downward pressure that economies have faced since the pandemic broke out.
Right.
So even though China is expected to grow, at least by one estimate, to 5.5%, is one of the only economies to grow to that margin. So I think when you talk about growth, if you look at the Belt and Road, when the growth has been high and you haven't had a lot of these pressures, China's investment with the Belt and Road has also seen proportional ups and downs. So growth has a lot to do with the Belt and Road and how it goes, and also with countries who are receiving it. Because if you receive them, there may be bureaucratic bottlenecks, there may be constraints in terms of operationalizing the investment. Bringing it into a country, one thing. Putting them into sectors and making them respond, another. The growth process world over can frustrate the momentum there, slow it down.
Right. Dr. Fazal Rahman, there are a lot of bottlenecks as well, but there is a term that we keep on hearing in international media as well, and the concerns raised about China's investment in BRI as debt trap diplomacy. What do you make of it?
It's largely Western, vested interest-based propaganda, and there is no truth to that because China is helping other countries, sort of very sincerely. For example, let's take the example of Pakistan. They did not come and force us to accept certain projects. We actually gave our priorities to them that these are the areas we would like to have your investment in. So they invested in those areas. Now the Chinese, Global Development Initiative is basically going to put in BRI investment not in very big mega projects. They are going to go to now medium scale and small scale projects so that the country's ability to pay back is there. The other thing is that China also need to adopt some more stringent measures in order to see each country's ability to pay back. As
right,
is a,
right. I want to
come
towards that as well. That is BRI a diplomatic tool to expand China's global influence? We keep on talking about that.
Well, actually, it's
because at the end of the day, it would be impacting positively on the economies of these countries, underdeveloping countries.
Actually, it's a sort of multiple benefiting approach in which get financial benefits, you get political benefits, you get benefits in terms of international system as your stature rises while you are conducting these kind of engagements with the rest of the world. So I think there are multiple benefits, but at the same time there are multiple risks because this world is a multipolar world. There are other poles of power who have their interest threatened. So they are going to take measures, they are going to adopt certain policies to undermine easy, smooth, easy sale of China's BRI, and that we have seen is happening in many countries where the governments and the regimes come under certain kind of pressure not to cooperate, not to deal, extensively or engage with China. So this kind of, it's a global politics, and it's a game
right.
of capacity. It's a game of kind of creating influence and using the right tools to gain your legitimate interests.
Right. We are talking about BRI. We have to take a short break here. Welcome back. We are talking about the cooperation between China, Pakistan, Turkey, and the future prospects of BRI. So, Mr. Hannan, like Dr. Fazal Rahman was talking about the debt trap policy, and a lot of propaganda has been going on internationally about this BRI project. But when we talk about the regional connectivity and economies of these countries in the region, there is a lot of potential for industrial development. Why these naysayers and why these concerns are being raised by these countries?
Well, simply put, it escapes no one. It's an ideological distraction. Of course, Belt and Road success is something that hasn't been contested by the West. So we do see select voices, particularly from the United States, kind of propping up this debt trap propaganda. I call it propaganda because there hasn't been a lot of evidence to suggest none of this has happened. I mean, if anything at all, we do know that within the G20 countries, China has been the most forthcoming when it has come to debt restructuring, talking about reaching early consensus on debt relief. Where are the other countries in doing that? And even if you take the test case of Sri Lanka, there's been research published by the Johns Hopkins University, an exhaustive one, which basically came to the conclusion that there was no debt trap. Sri Lanka was negotiating, and even now we do see momentum across all countries engaged under the Belt and Road to have that flexibility. So yes, it's a narrative which sadly has zero credibility and is used by those opposing China's rise in the Belt and Road to create false perceptions.
Right. So how do you see the future of Sino-Turkish relations in the backdrop of BRI?
I think it's an optimistic road. There's going to be an upward trajectory. Some of the sectors that are pointed out to remain open to all that happening. Should we have stronger strategic communication? For example, we've seen Turkey's interest in getting through the SCO. The SCO does have a development mechanism as well and a framework in process, so that could help both countries. I think it's going to be optimistic, regionally beneficial, and also something that has practical elements attached to it.
Right. So when we talk about these practical elements, what are the key areas that should be focused in the future?
So I think in the short run, you want to cater to things that are more manageable. So I think building on, I'd say, the hard infrastructure, and as well as Turkey's pursuit to have stronger telecommunication networks. They've expressed an interest in the 5G as well, to build on those, because China's supplies are ready on that end. And also in the longer run, build on infrastructure which could then assume a more connectivity sort of an image when it comes to Pakistan, when it comes to other SCO countries, and also along the Eurasian belt.
Right. So how would it increase the trade from China to Europe once these are
I think,
done?
yeah, it's a bit early to say. I think even from the Chinese side, we haven't seen a lot of official on the impact, because the impact is established after everything is done. And I think China is more than happy to treat its progress with Turkey as something that can be optimized. So I think in the longer run, we're going to see transportation and infrastructure play a key role, even within Turkey. So connecting one city with the other would limit manufacturing time, would limit commodity supply bottlenecks, and that to be used for regionally would happen. So first, upgrading Turkey's own capacity building, using China's own lessons from other countries, and using that as a regional tool to build on the Euro-Asian outlook.
Right. So, Dr. Fazal Rahman, this requires a multilateral roadmap. What should be done by these countries to develop this roadmap?
I think they should develop kind of a larger, broader consensus on certain issues of economic integration of global political scene, so that they can develop kind of a roadmap for cooperation and for development. So I think that more political dialogue is very important in this regard.
So we are talking about BRI, but let's talk about Pakistan and Turkey relations. And when we talk about the trade volume between the two countries, it is not that significant. But we have signed a free trade agreement between Pakistan and Turkey. So what is the progress of this, and how this would be impacting the trade volume between Pakistan and Turkey?
So I think there are multiple constraints, but those constraints are negotiable. So you look at, for example, the bureaucratic side of things. I think there's been a lot of effort in terms of expanding trade from a 1 billion mark, which both sides felt could be expanded more, to a 5 billion target setup. I think that provides impetus to Pakistan and Turkey to treat this as a multi-year exercise to get investors on board and scale it up. I think the second particular thing about expanding trade and how it could benefit both countries is pretty obvious, because Turkey is a country based on fraternal ties, is more acquainted with how Pakistan's market progresses, what are high growth sectors. So you look at fintech and technology as well. The financial sector has been pretty strong, and how both countries, when facing downward economic pressure, can negotiate those constraints better. So I think an understanding of what each other's markets and investor sentiments are, coupled with a 5 billion target, is a good starting point to make it happen in future years.
Right, right. So, Dr. Fazal Rahman, how can Pakistan include Turkish companies in different sectors of Pakistan, specifically in the backdrop of CPEC? If we talk about the energy sector, transport sector, how can Turkish companies can be included in this?
Well, I think the best option which could attract Turkish companies is to bring them to the special economic zones that we are trying to construct and have their investment in that. Because we still are in the process of developing those special economic zones. We need foreign investment. We have to attract, incentivize the investors. And Turkish companies could sort of come here. For example, these solar panel making companies, and some companies which are making the parts of automobiles, and which are making some other such products which are needed in Pakistan, should be manufactured in Pakistan. Pakistan has a huge automobile industry. So I think there are areas which the experts should identify.
Aerospace industry is also another sector in which two countries have collaborated in the past. What about defense production between the two countries? How can we increase that?
It again is a game of exchanging technologies and seeing what is Turkey's defense industry is quite advanced, especially in small arms and in the other areas also. Pakistan's defense industry is also. So we perhaps can have a joint venture in which we can not only cater for our own needs, but we can also target third countries for the sale of these defense equipments.
Right. So, Dr. Fazal, when we talk about BRI, Turkey's involvement in this project makes it an international project. But if we look at the trade between Pakistan and Turkey specifically, it has remained stagnant at large. How can we increase the trade between the two countries? In which sectors both the countries need to invest more?
We need to study the Turkish market. What is their requirement? And are we in a position to produce surplus to send to Turkey? Our major problem has been that we do not have much surplus to, send over as exports. We are not producing enough to cater for the needs of the other countries in terms of, their imports. So I think we have to put a lot of emphasis on studying the international situation, studying the markets of the other countries, including China.
We have not studied Chinese market sector as well.
Absolutely, I think it's a responsibility. It has to be a hand-in-hand approach where the government should co-opt the business community in making strategy and making plans and working out and facilitating them, because export-led growth in any country is the key to development. Unless until we enter into that arena, we will not be able to really address our economic issues.
Right, we won't be able to address our economic issues. But when we talk about huge and ambitious projects like BRI, there is a lot of potential. Obviously, we're talking about the bottlenecks that we are facing, but there is a lot of potential as well. How to maximize that potential for the benefit of the region at large?
I think one of the bottlenecks that we pointed to are not exclusive to Turkey and Pakistan. I mean, many of the countries under the Belt and Road have faced those bottlenecks and still prospered. So I think the challenges are less compared to the opportunities. When we talk about opportunities, we need to scale it down to specific areas. So when we talk about increasing industry-to-industry cooperation, I think the Belt and Road provides strong working groups, joint working exercises that will help Pakistan and Turkey kind of cater to their, their market expectations, get investors on board, and then use those understandings to promote Belt and Road growth. Because it's not just as if, signing projects makes it happen. China's approach has been important in the sense that it allows those analytical exercises, getting assessment reports across investors and markets, and then translate that to inform Belt and Road cooperation. That would be a starting point to make things happen.
Right, that would be a starting point. Thank you very much, Dr. Fazlur Rahman, for joining in today's show. Thank you, Mr. Hannan Hussain, for joining in today's show. BRI is a multifaceted and dynamic project, and realizing the potential of BRI would require complementary action by 3 countries and other countries in the region. That is all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.